Okay, it's Colonel Cliff Serene, and I want to tell you nothing more about me, and I'm going to keep asking you questions. And the questions I keep asking you have again to do with my status as being a Men in Black, and we don't want to get involved too much with jogging your memory, but we want to remind you that even on the NBC News with Lester Holt, they've talked about Navy planes filming UFOs, and the films were shown on the 6:30 news. So what's really going on with extraterrestrials is still only touched on by mainstream news. But in the past, they would have laughed and not even put the story on. They would have said it's all tin hat and conspiracy. But nowadays, mainstream news has announced that even the U.S. Navy has had these UFO incidents. So it's wide open. And I know that they're always talking about the Rona, but I don't really follow it day to day, anyways. But as far as what's really going on with the extraterrestrials, well, if it's real for mainstream news, then it's not fake news, so it must be real for Donald Trump, who, I don't know if he's going to get reelected or not. He just said everything was rigged, and I didn't say it was whether this election was rigged, but clearly the last one must have been. Okay, I'm feeling Minnesota. This is my Minnesota Vikings hat. And, what else do we want to tell you from the Midlands? That's sort of the Midlands. And the Midlands say, we don't want to tell you, but we never see anybody from Ontario province in Canada down in Minnesota anymore. And Minnesotans are very used to seeing Ontario license plates. All over Minnesota, in the Twin Cities, yes, and also in Duluth, Superior, Wisconsin, of course, that's just over the bridge. But yeah, those Ontario license plates, if you've seen any this past 2020, then you should be asking yourself, what on earth is that license plate doing in Minnesota now? And the answer is, I guess you're never going to know, but for vacation travel, the border is closed, and the Americans that used to go north, not as many Americans would go north into Canada as would go south into Minnesota. Also in Minnesota, we want to tell you that we still haven't figured out what's going on with the lack of incident reports from going on to never mind. Okay, we're still trying to figure out when are we going to hear about never-ending reports that never getting there. No. They keep asking me the same old questions from, did the UFOs really fly over the Eisenhower White House in the 1950s? Was the Battle of Los Angeles in World War II really between American soldiers and UFO extraterrestrials? We still want to know what other big UFO stories. What about the strange sightings in North Vancouver, British Columbia? That is, if you're in a tower downtown and you're looking towards the forested areas of North Vancouver, why is it that sometimes you see what looks like little teeny tiny spaceships taking off from the woods and going right up above the trees like little mini rockets, and then going really fast and disappearing out into space? These would be like really tiny. They'd be very small, like the size of a surfboard. How can you fit extraterrestrials in a UFO the size of a surfboard? Go to North Vancouver, Canada, and look. Just go in any downtown tower just look. with maybe binoculars or, All right, the news again comes through. We were looking for a hat. It belongs to our author, Christopher Isherwood, and that hat is gone missing. So I'm going to wear this hat, which used to believe it was from an Australian bloke we called Bob Ross, from Bob Ross Down Under. And Bob Ross wants to tell you that he and Christopher Isherwood, who are as a British, almost sound the same. Australia and England, the dialect of English that they sound like, it sounds a lot more alike between those two, and Canadian sounds a lot more like America. Like America, where we eat pizza and we have like Pabst beer, and where we speak English, and we don't have all those extra letters. Like we don't put a U in the word color like you do in those other English places that, it's so complicated. Okay, from the land of Supernatural TV show, the only news that we remember is once you've worked on Supernatural, then things get kind of scary in your real life. I just wanted to add, like, in your real life, like, long after you've worked on this show, you're going to have supernatural things happen, just like the kind of things that happen in this show. So if you've ever worked on this show, or you're dating someone, or you're, God forbid, you're married to somebody from the Supernatural TV show, well, I shouldn't have to tell you that, at least for me, I keep experiencing supernatural things. Okay, what else do we want to tell you about Harley Davidson from the dark side? Well, from the dark side, I mean, if you look at the Harley Davidson, it's a very uh, does it look gay to you? This kind of a hat, does it look like somebody would be wearing like black leather walking down one of the gay boulevards and they have this hat on? I mean, in other words, is everyone who wears a hat that says Harley Davidson like this, are they all secretly, no, you wouldn't believe that. What if it was a woman who was wearing this hat? Would you automatically assume her that she was, no, you wouldn't believe that, she was like a gender bending or something. I think what's going to happen is eventually everyone is going to get bored and they're going to eventually break through some of the walls that they've built between themselves and something that might be fun, but they still have these religious prejudices. Like there's so many like straight men that have never really like you know and like seriously, you're just like I mean, you're on your way to your deathbed, right? Like a lot of you are already like and you're on your way to your deathbed, and you haven't experienced that one huge taboo. It's space, the final frontier, and then there's this thing that straight men just won't do, and it's the final frontier, and they are basically saying. I'd rather go. I don't know. It's just like they just built this wall. It's like I'm not, and to break down this wall would be to say, I'm totally stagnant and I'm waiting to drop dead. And the only thing that's on my list of taboos, that's being talked about right now, is my taboo about making out with other men. And then for totally gay men, like seriously, you never slept with a woman for your entire life. You were going straight for the grave, even if you're only 22. But you mean you're totally like you're one of those men that is just abhorrent with the thought of a woman's private parts, and you just can't go there, and everyone believes it. Everyone is like, no one's questioning you. You told this story once, and everyone, yeah, yeah, you're one of them, and and it just that's the way you are. But if you go to your deathbed with everything else on your gay man's bucket list, except getting down and dirty with the opposite sex, then you're no different than the straight man who has decided that they've lost their sense of adventure. They lost their balls because they've got no courage to try something that is like an incredible amount of courage to cross that center line or something and play chicken with and then go right over to the far side, and then next thing you know, you're mm, um, um, mm, mm, next thing you know, you're playing around with your toys, and you're giving them all place in your heart, and you're more attached to your toys than you are to other. And then you become one of those asexual people. Asexual. No, you'll hang out with people, but you don't never want to have sex with them. Asexual, it's just dangly bits and kind of embarrassing things, just. They just. All right, in Germany, we still think that the books are very hot, like very sexy books. The Christopher Isherwood books about him going to Berlin and you know making out with all the German men, and making out means like instead of like what happened just 10 years later with World War II, shooting one another, men were making out. They were like erotically, romantically involved with other men, or they were rent boys. In other words, they were prostitutes. Now in Winnipeg, which is north of North Dakota, they apparently they used to be known in the 1980s as a place where you could get off sales beer, which was couldn't get that in Ontario. In other words, you could go to the bar if it was attached to a hotel, and you could buy a cold case of beer to take home with you. So you didn't have to consume it on the premises. So they called it off sales, and that was convenient if you know, if you didn't have it, that was something better. And they were known for having incredibly cheap drinks at certain things, like I don't know if it was happy hour or not, but we remember there being like 1 ounce shots of liqueurs, like shooter kind of drinks, like candy drinks or like Tabasco snake bite drinks. But shooter drinks, and they were like super cheap. Even for those days, they were like 50 cents each. It was like, we didn't think that 50 cents would pay for the alcohol, because the alcohol was so highly taxed. 50 cents would, but anyway, they were selling these really cheap. And so we heard about this bar and we went there. I think it was called Scandals in Winnipeg. Okay, so what else do you want to know about this TV show, Supernatural? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. They never call me to go back on that show. Um, but the show continues. I mean, maybe even after you watch the show, like I was on the show. Did I watch it on TV? Maybe I did go looking to see the episode where you could see my face when I was playing a hotel clerk in one of the episodes. I don't know. Someone anyway. And just want to know, like, if you watch Supernatural, do you start finding really bizarre like lead-ins in your life that sort of remind you of what you've learned from this TV show? I mean, it's insidious. It gets in your head, and the next thing you know, you start seeing Beelzebub, the name of the king of the flies, the demon. Beelzebub, on license plates in your town. In my town, we have Beelzebub. It's like B Z or Z L. I don't know. Is it LB? I don't think that's how it goes, but it's something like that. It's like you can just it's bumper stumpers. Remember that old TV show? And it says Beelzebub. And okay, this is a craft beer. Superior Beer is a craft beer, and which means it's not mass produced. And we were talking earlier about Labatt Brewery and Molson Brewery in Canada that used to be the dominant breweries. It was a duopoly, not a monopoly. Monopoly is the only one. Duopoly was there was two major organizations selling beer in Canada. And well, it made Canada Canada to have Canadian beer. And it was different than American beer. And there's no different, they're totally different. And now they've lost this independence when it comes to beer. And what are you going to drink in a Canadian bar? Probably world beers like Budweiser. It's ruined Canada, this end of the Canadian beer industry, and it's now the world beer industry. And like, it just makes Toronto no different than Amsterdam. There's no character anymore. It used to be that, in Canada, there were certain beers that you could only get in certain provinces. Like in Nova Scotia, you could get Schooner, and then they told us about it in Ontario and they gave it to us. And it did taste a little bit different. And in Northern Ontario, you could get Crystal, and Crystal was made almost the same as Labatt Blue, but it tasted way different. And well, there was a lot of different other beer stories. But if we were going to talk about, craft breweries, well, you never tasted Quebec Cream Ale or Edelbrau or Doran's Superior Lager Draft. That's what they served in Northern Ontario, in the 1980s. They had, it was like, the beer monopolies were strange. Now I'm calling it monopoly. Well, it was like the beer companies all together owned the beer store. And they divvied up the province as to who got the draft beer. You would get this or that. And in Northern Ontario, Northern Breweries was in Northern Ontario. It was in Sudbury and Thunder Bay. And they made beer in Northern Ontario that was sold at Northern Ontario bars as the draft beer. And oh my God, Superior Draft Lager beer was mostly served, and there was no worse beer to serve as a draft beer for your house, because it would give you the worst dries the next day. You'd be so dry, you could never drink enough water because you're so dry. It would make you have diarrhea every time. But it would get you drunk. That's another episode. Thanks for watching. Tune in tomorrow.